Meet Dimples, the massasauga rattlesnake, who is the star of this recording. Massasaugas are Ontario's only venomous snakes. Dimples is a captive specimen who lives in an attractive, escape-proof terrarium in a college biology department, where he is kept for educational purposes. But why would anyone give such a name to a rattlesnake of all things? All rattlers have an indentation or pit on each side of the face between the eye and nostril. Organs of temperature awareness, which help the snake to detect the presence of warm-blooded prey, even in darkness, are located in these pits. They might remind you of Dimples, but to rattlesnakes they are certainly more useful. In all of Canada, only the rattlesnakes are venomous. The northern Pacific rattler is found in the interior dry belt of southern British Columbia, the prairie rattler in parts of southern Alberta and Saskatchewan, and the small eastern massasauga in parts of Ontario. Years ago, the larger timber or banded rattlesnake was common in Ontario's Niagara Gorge region, but there have been no records of this snake in the province since 1941. The other Canadian provinces are free of rattlers, and Newfoundland hasn't any native snakes at all. Although we have 3 kinds of rattlesnakes in Canada, all rattlers have many features in common, so we are going to discuss these before we describe the individual snakes. Rattlesnakes have stout bodies, thin necks, and triangular-shaped heads. They are mottled or blotched in appearance, and their scales are rough. They have vertically elliptical eye pupils, unlike the round ones of our Canadian harmless snakes, and of course the pits or dimples on the face. You wouldn't want to get close enough to a rattler in the wilds to distinguish the shape of its eye pupils or notice the pits. The venom-conducting fangs of these snakes are hollow like a hypodermic needle and are located in the front of the mouth, solidly embedded in the upper jawbone. They are movable and rest flat against the roof of the mouth when not in use. The fangs do not necessarily move as one, but can move independently. It is not unusual to see a captive rattler open its mouth as if yawning and lazily erect first one fang and then the other. The fangs are not permanent, but are replaced periodically by new ones. A new fang is already in place when the old one is lost, so removal of the fangs to render a rattler harmless is futile, and removal of the venom glands would kill the snake. The venom is primarily a means of attaining food. Its use as a defensive weapon is secondary. The rattler can regulate the amount of venom to be discharged. Some snake venom is used for medical purposes, so it could save life as well as take it. Besides their fangs, rattlers, like non-venomous snakes, also have numerous small, recurved teeth. The forked tongue of all snakes, including rattlers, is perfectly harmless and serves as an organ of scent. Some snakes lay eggs, and others, including rattlesnakes, give birth to living young, but they receive no parental care. Young rattlers are fully equipped with their venom apparatus, and even at this age can kill their prey and inflict a serious bite. The plates on the underside of the tail of rattlers are in a single row, whereas those of our non-venomous snakes are in a double row. The tail, of course, terminates in a rattle, which is just a tiny button on a baby rattler. The rattle is composed of a series of loosely interlocking segments and is made of a substance known as keratin, of which hair, horn, and fingernails are also made. The rattle is not, as is often believed, an indicator of the snake's age. A new segment is added with each skin shedding, not each year of the snake's life. Young snakes grow rapidly during the first few years and shed their skin frequently. It is rare that a perfect set of rattles is found on older rattlers, with the exception of some captive specimens. A captive timber rattlesnake in the United States had 29 segments, but a snake so burdened is hardly able to make a sound. In nature, the segments are frequently broken because of the ruggedness of the terrain in which the rattlers travel, although a crawling rattler elevates its tail just enough to keep his rattles off the ground. The sound of the rattle is made by the vibrating of the tail, which causes the interlocking segments to rub together and produce a buzzing sound. This may resemble the buzzing of a bee, a cicada, or have a somewhat mechanized sound. What do you think it sounds like? It would be quite possible to overlook this warning, especially that of the small massasauga, while outdoors where there are also the sounds of birds, frogs, and insects. A really agitated rattlesnake can rattle continuously for an hour, but in the security of his captivity, it takes a lot to get Dimples rattled. However, he hates to have someone blow through the screen-top terrarium on the back of his neck. Snakes can't hear airborne sounds, so rattlers never have the pleasure of hearing their rattle. Rattlesnakes do not always sound a warning before striking, nor is it necessary for them to coil and strike in order to inflict a bite. If handled or accidentally stepped on, they will simply twist the head and bite. Some non-venomous snakes will vibrate their tail in imitation of a rattler, and a somewhat buzzing sound is produced, especially if the tail is vibrated amongst dry leaves. The tail of these snakes is pointed and lacks a segmented rattle. It is not known why rattlesnakes are equipped with a rattle, although there are various theories. One is the fact that the rattle serves to ward off sharp-hoofed animals that have shared the same range of prairie and forest since earliest times. Like most wild animals, rattlesnakes try to avoid encounters with humans and won't attack unless provoked or cornered. Some species are more aggressive than others, and even individuals may vary in temperament. The first Canadian rattlesnake that we are going to describe is the Northern Pacific rattler of British Columbia. This snake may reach a length of a little more than 5 feet, but the average length is about 3. It has a broad, flat, triangular-shaped head with small scales on the top. The top of the head is dark, and there is a dark band from below the eye to the corner of the jaw. The ground color of this rattler may be brown, olive, or gray, with a series of large dark brown blotches down the middle of the back, and smaller alternating ones along each side. The blotches merge to form cross bands on the tail. The dark blotches are bordered with a white or yellowish color. Some specimens are so dark that only the light border of the blotches is noticeable. The non-venomous mottled gopher snake, that may reach a length of 6 feet and is found within the same range, is often mistaken for the Pacific rattler and unfortunately killed. It will vibrate its tail when annoyed. The Pacific rattlesnake prefers dry, desert-like areas, but where there is some shelter from the sun, such as at the base of rock slides and in sagebrush country, where there are boulders and other cover. These snakes shelter individually at night, then move out to the hunting grounds for food early each morning and return each evening. At these times, they may occasionally be seen crossing roads or other open places, but because of the ruggedness of their habitat, they may be overlooked at other times. These rattlesnakes congregate in dens part way up a bluff to hibernate in the winter. Sometimes the hibernating places may contain 100 or more snakes. The food of this rattler consists mainly of small, destructive rodents, such as mice and gophers. This fact makes the snake economically valuable. It is not normally an aggressive snake, but if provoked or teased, will strike rapidly and often blindly. The Northern Pacific rattler is found throughout southern British Columbia's interior dry belt, east to the vicinity of Cascade, north to the Lac du Bois area, and west to Lytton. Some have been reported in the vicinity of Lillooet on the west bank of the Fraser River. The prairie rattlesnake of Alberta and Saskatchewan has been known to reach a length of 5 feet, but like the Pacific rattler is usually smaller. The triangular-shaped head is also flattened above. The ground color of this snake may be yellowish, greenish, or grayish-brown, with a series of large dark blotches down the back, and smaller ones on each side. These blotches have a narrow border of yellow or white. There are crossbands on the tail. Unlike the more distinct dark blotches of the Pacific rattler, those of the prairie rattlesnake seem to extend in such a way as to give the whole body a somewhat banded appearance. After these rattlers shed their skin, some may appear a bright orangey yellow, and this has led to the mistaken notion among some local residents that there are 2 species. The large mottled bull snake, which is related to British Columbia's gopher snake, might be mistaken for the prairie rattler, and the western hognose snake, which has a stout body, a somewhat triangular-shaped head, and is yellowish-brown in color, can also be confusing. This snake is wrongly called a puff adder, as it inflates its head like a cobra, hisses loudly, and may even strike, but with the mouth closed. If this act fails, it rolls over, mouth agape, and plays dead. Both of these non-venomous snakes may be found within some parts of the range of the prairie rattler. The prairie rattlesnake inhabits grain fields and grasslands, where it blends in well with cactus, thistles, and prairie grass. It seeks shelter in a discarded animal burrow, often that of the prairie dog, and this fact has led to the belief that it lives in peace with this animal. This is hardly the case, as the prairie dog is one of its food items. The hibernating dens of these rattlesnakes may be a great distance from their summer haunts. They are usually earthy cavities in the sides of coulées and canyons, or in rocky caves. This rattlesnake is of considerable economic value to the farmer, as it feeds on grain-destroying pests such as rats, mice, and other small rodents. It appears not to want to waste its venom on useless striking, and because of the relative isolation of some of its localities, humans aren't really in great danger, but cattle and other domestic animals are sometimes bitten. The young are usually born in August or September, and there may be as many as 21 in a litter. They are about 8½ inches long at birth. The prairie rattler is found in southeastern Alberta and southwestern Saskatchewan, ranging on both sides of the Alberta-Saskatchewan boundary from the vicinity of Lethbridge in Alberta to west of Killdeer in Saskatchewan. It is found north to the Red Deer River and along the South Saskatchewan River to just north of Prelate. Ontario's small eastern massasauga rattlesnake is generally found in more readily accessible areas than are the western rattlers, so more people have encountered it in the wilds. Because of this fact, some people wrongly believe it to be increasing in numbers, whereas it is actually decreasing in many of its localities. This snake is also known as the swamp rattlesnake and the little gray rattlesnake. The name Massasauga is derived from 2 Chippewa Indian words, which mean literally great river mouth. The Indians found this snake common in the region of river mouths. This rattler is a mild-mannered, rather sluggish little snake, which normally prefers to retreat rather than attack. The greatest danger is in accidentally stepping on it, as it blends in so well with its surroundings. The Massasauga is stout-bodied and seldom attains a length of more than 2½ feet, although 3-footers have been found. The head is broad and distinct from the neck, but it is not as triangular as that of the western rattlers. There are 9 large symmetrical scales on the top of its head, as in non-venomous snakes, unlike the numerous small scales of our other rattlers. The snout is blunt, and like all rattlers, it has the facial pits and cat-like eye pupils. Although it is not a colorful snake, it has rather attractive markings. Those on the head consist of a broad band extending across between the eyes and a dark band on each side of the face, from just below the eye to the corner of the mouth. The ground color is gray or brownish, with a pattern of large dark blotches down the middle of the back, and 3 rows of smaller alternating ones along each side. There are cross bands on the tail, which of course terminates in a rattle. In proportion to the stout body, the rattle is small and could easily escape notice. The belly is mostly black with white mottling towards the neck, changing to gray and white on the throat and chin. Some non-venomous snakes, especially the mottled fox and milk snakes, which vibrate their tail, the eastern hognose snake, and sometimes even the water snake, are frequently mistaken for massasaugas. All of these snakes may be found within the massasauga's range, and this is another reason why some people believe these rattlers to be more numerous than they really are. The favorite habitat of the massasauga is around swamps and bogs, where it can get frogs, which it relishes as well as mice. Although all rattlers can swim, the massasauga is more aquatic than the others. It is not uncommon to find it swimming some distance from the shore, and it is just as capable of inflicting a bite in the water as on land, although this is seldom the case. It also may be found in rocky places and in meadows where it searches for mice. The massasauga will eat dead and even decayed food. Unlike the western rattlers, it does not have to travel far to find a suitable place to hibernate. Young massasaugas are born from late July to early September. There are usually 7 or 8 in a litter. Ontario's massasauga rattlesnake is found along the shores of Georgian Bay to about 20 miles inland in some places, on islands in the bay, and on the Bruce Peninsula. It is also found along some parts of the Lake Huron and Lake Erie shores, and in the vicinity of Lake St. Clair. It is fairly common in the Wainfleet Marsh near the northeastern shore of Lake Erie. You might have found all this information interesting, but perhaps you also want to know what precautions to take when in rattlesnake areas and what to do if you are bitten. If you are planning to travel or spend your vacation in rattler territory, you should find out beforehand where the nearest hospital or doctor is located. Antivenin is available in key centers in all the Canadian rattlesnake localities, but because of the necessity of making a sensitivity test, it should be administered by a physician. You would also be wise to take along a snakebite kit. This would be valuable if there would be any delay in getting medical aid because of a great distance to be traveled or a stormy body of water to cross. It contains a tourniquet, suction devices, an antiseptic solution, and an instrument for incising. The tourniquet could do more harm than good if not properly applied. It should be placed between the bite and the heart and be tight enough to compress the soft tissues, but not tight enough to stop blood circulation. It should be loosened for about 20 seconds at 15-minute intervals. Even if you have used these first aid measures, get to a hospital or doctor practicing in the locality as soon as possible. Without proper treatment, the bite of any of the Canadian rattlesnakes could be fatal, although fortunately this seldom has been the case. When around rocks, underbrush, and swamps, wear protective clothing, such as leather boots and heavy socks. Feel about with a stick before reaching for fuel wood or when picking berries, and always use a flashlight if out at night. If you hear a rattler, Remain still and try to determine the direction of the sound. Then move carefully away in the opposite direction. The snake will not follow or chase you, as it will welcome the chance to make a hasty retreat itself. Do not handle mottled or banded snakes, as you could make a mistake in their identity. Also, never handle a freshly killed rattler, as nerve reflex enables it to bite for some time after death. If you do have the misfortune to be bitten by a rattler, your first thought, of course, should be to get medical aid as soon as possible. We cannot say definitely how soon this must be before the victim is in danger, as there are variable factors that affect the severity of each case. These include the age, size, and health of the victim, location of the bite, and the amount of venom injected. In the case of a bite from the small massasauga, a healthy adult bitten on the extremities might not be in danger for about 2 hours. In the meantime, the victim should be kept cool and as quiet as possible. He should be carried when necessary, as any increase in circulation will help to spread the venom. Cold compresses may be applied to the bitten area, but alcoholic stimulants should never be given. If you did not see the snake that bit you, you might wonder how to identify the bite. If it were a rattler, there would usually be 2 distinct fang punctures, although in some cases only one may penetrate the skin. Occasionally, marks from the rattler's other small teeth may also be visible. The bitten area usually swells soon after the bite. Pain, nausea, chills, dizziness, and discoloration in the bitten area are also symptoms. Some of our large, non-venomous snakes may bite if molested. Their bite can draw blood, and the small scratches they leave are usually in the shape of a horseshoe. The distinct fang punctures made by a rattler are absent. Dogs, cats, and other pets may also be bitten by rattlesnakes, and are frequently bitten on the face, head, or trunk, which can be dangerous. The smaller the body of the victim, the more serious are the results, which is also the case with humans. Treatment is basically the same, and the animal should receive antivenom as soon as possible. Rattlesnakes are not desirable in the vicinity of campsites and other human habitation, but because they play their part in the balance of nature by controlling rapidly breeding rodent pests, they should not be harmed in isolated areas. Organized snake hunts accomplish little other than the needless killing of our harmless and beneficial snakes. More of these than rattlers are usually the victims of snake hunts, because some people can't tell the difference between a rattler and some other snakes. Also, inexperienced persons seeking to kill as many rattlers as possible could themselves become victims of a bite, perhaps far from medical aid. Compared with the number of highway accidents, drowning, and other fatal mishaps each summer, the chance of death as the result of a rattlesnake bite is very slight. It should also be remembered that sometimes not the bite, but fear alone has been known to cause death. One thing is sure, Dimples isn't going to get the chance to bite anyone, and here he is once more, to sound off.